She knocked softly and said, "We need you, human, please don't turn us away." The air in the Luna research outpost was thin and cold, but quiet, almost too quiet. "Doctor." Arya Jensen leaned against the metal railing of the observation deck, staring at the endless gray plains that stretched to the horizon. Outside, the lunar dust glimmered faintly under the sun's pale light, reflecting off the sharp ridges and craters that had existed for millions of years, untouched by human hands. It was beautiful in a stark and lonely way. She often found herself thinking that humanity had no business being here, yet here they were, building their little colony of science and hope on a dead rock orbiting a dead planet. The silence broke with a sound that didn't belong, a gentle knock. It was soft, polite, and deliberate, coming from the large airlock door of the outpost. Arya froze, her heart skipping a beat. On Luna, no one knocked. Everyone arrived either through scheduled docking procedures or by internal communications. No one ever came by surprise. And yet here was a knock, echoing in the metallic corridors, almost human in its rhythm. Arya glanced around, but the rest of the outpost was empty. The crew had left earlier for the surface survey, leaving her behind to monitor satellite data. Hesitant, she walked toward the door. The knock came again, slightly firmer this time, and it was accompanied by a voice, soft, calm, and yet tinged with a sense of urgency. "Please, we need you, human, don't turn us away." Arya's fingers froze on the control panel. Her mind raced. A human voice? There was no reason for a human to be on the surface alone. The communication systems were silent. She activated the internal cameras, and what she saw made her gasp. Standing outside the reinforced airlock, bathed in the dim light of the lunar sun, was a being unlike any she had ever seen. Tall and slender, with shimmering silver skin that seemed almost liquid, eyes larger than any human's, glowing faintly like twin moons, and a presence that radiated both fragility and strength. The being held its hands up in a gesture of peace, its expression calm but pleading. What are you?" Arya whispered, though the voice carried no authority. Her hands trembled slightly as she pressed the communication button. "I am called Leora," the being replied, voice melodic and soft. "We, my people, are in danger. We need you." "We have no one else to turn to." Arya's mind refused to accept what she was hearing. The idea that any alien civilization, let alone one capable of interstellar travel, would come to her, a lone human on a small outpost, asking for help was absurd. She shook her head. "We can't just open the airlock to strangers," she said slowly, trying to keep her voice steady. "Protocols, security protocols, require verification, identification." Her words trailed off, and she realized they sounded meaningless even to herself. Leora's head tilted slightly, almost in a gesture of understanding. "I know, we have studied your species, we know your caution, your rules, but this is not a matter of protocol. It is a matter of survival. My people cannot survive without your help. Please, we do not ask lightly." Arya stepped back from the airlock panel, feeling the weight of the moment. Her mind spun with every possible question. What species? Why them? Why humans? She thought of the countless warnings, the stories of alien encounters, some friendly but most hostile. Humanity was not considered the galaxy's strongest or wisest race. Other civilizations often laughed at humans, calling them reckless, emotional, unpredictable. Yet here on a quiet lunar plateau, a being of incredible intelligence and power was asking for her help. She took a deep breath and spoke into the calm. "What kind of help?" Leora's eyes seemed to glimmer brighter as she began to explain, her voice gentle but urgent. "Our people are facing a crisis we cannot solve. It is not a disease, not a war, not a natural disaster in the usual sense. Our systems, our calculations, our technology, they are failing us. Everything we do to fix it makes the problem worse. Only your species can do what we cannot. You see things we cannot see. You break patterns we cannot break. You improvise." Arya blinked. Improvisation. Humans had always been considered chaotic and unpredictable. If anything, she thought, that was the exact opposite of what the galaxy's great civilizations valued. And yet, here was a being whose species had ruled the stars for millennia, pleading for the kind of chaotic creativity that humans had in abundance. I don't understand," she admitted. "Why us?" "Because you are human," Leora said simply. "Other species rely on perfection, on certainty. You are not bound by the same rules. You dare to try when others would give up. You take risks when the safe choice is to retreat. That may be our only hope." Arya felt a shiver run down her spine. The implications were enormous. A civilization, entire species, had traveled light years to reach out to humans for aid. And she, a single human on a remote lunar outpost, had been chosen as the first point of contact. "Wait, you're telling me the whole galaxy thinks humans are chaotic?" she said, half in disbelief, half in curiosity. "Yes," Leora replied, almost smiling. "And yet, paradoxically, we hope you are what we need." Arya took a step back, looking at the alien being through the thick airlock glass. She thought about the last message from Earth Command, about the slow pace of human colonization of space. Humans were not technologically dominant, nor were they politically or militarily superior. Yet somehow here she was, the only human capable, or trusted, to help a civilization in crisis. The soft knocking came again, followed by a quiet plea. "Please, we do not know what else to do. Do not turn us away." Arya's fingers hovered over the controls. Every instinct told her to ignore the being, to call for backup, to adhere to protocol. And yet, something deeper, older, surged inside her. Humanity had survived wars, plagues, and disasters on Earth because they refused to turn away from challenges. Perhaps this was just another challenge, scaled up to unimaginable proportions. She swallowed hard and pressed the intercom. "All right, you can enter. But only in the quarantine chamber. No direct contact until we verify your biological safety and scan your systems." "Understood," Leora nodded, her expression unreadable but calm. "Understood, thank you." The airlock hissed open, and Leora stepped inside, moving with a grace that seemed almost liquid. The interior lights reflected off her shimmering skin, casting soft, silver shadows on the walls. Arya followed protocol, sealing the chamber behind the alien and initiating a series of scans. Everything about Leora was alien, yet in her eyes there was something familiar, almost human, the quiet weight of desperation, the humility of someone asking for help against impossible odds. "What happened to your people?" Arya asked quietly, unable to resist the question. "They trusted too much in certainty," Leora said softly. "We believed that every problem had a logical solution, that the universe could be calculated and controlled. But we were wrong. Our systems are collapsing, our cities, our ships, our knowledge, all failing. If we cannot find a new way, all of us will be lost." Arya's mind whirled. The weight of responsibility pressed on her chest. She was not just facing an alien species asking for help, she was facing the possibility of an extinction-scale crisis. And yet somewhere inside, a spark of determination ignited. Humanity had always thrived in impossible situations, in places others deemed hopeless. Perhaps this was just the next test. I think I understand," she said finally, "and I want to help. But you need to tell me everything, every detail. Nothing can be left out." Leora's eyes glimmered faintly, and she nodded. "I will, but you must understand there are no guarantees. Our problem is unique. Only humans could even attempt a solution. Only humans could try where others would fail." Arya felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. Her entire life had led to this moment, though she never knew it. She had studied alien biology, xenotechnology, and interstellar systems for years, but this was different. This was not about science alone. This was about hope, about daring to try when everything else had failed. For hours, Leora explained the nature of her people's crisis. It was complicated, almost impossible to fully comprehend. Their systems were interconnected across planets, stars, and dimensions in ways that made human engineers dizzy. Every attempt to fix a failing system caused cascading failures elsewhere. Traditional logic was useless. And yet in the complexity there was a small opening, a path that seemed improbable but not impossible. Arya listened carefully, taking notes, asking questions, testing the limits of what she understood. She could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing on her shoulders, but she also felt something else. A sense of purpose, the rare and undeniable feeling that humanity, flawed, unpredictable, and chaotic, might actually make a difference where the greatest civilizations had failed. And for the first time in her life, Arya Jensen realized that being human might be humanity's greatest strength. Arya Jensen sat in the small, bright quarantine chamber, staring at Leora. The alien had removed the soft hood that had covered most of her shimmering body, revealing more of the strange, silver skin that seemed to ripple subtly with every movement. There was a quiet dignity in her posture, but also a raw exhaustion, like someone carrying the weight of the stars on their shoulders. "Where do we even begin?" Arya asked, rubbing her temples. Her mind was buzzing with data, calculations, and questions she could barely frame. Every system Leora described seemed so advanced that human engineers would normally dismiss it as impossible. Yet here she was, faced with the knowledge that her species might be the only one capable of acting where logic itself had failed. "You begin by listening," Leora said softly. Her voice had a musical quality like wind passing through a crystalline forest. "You cannot solve this by jumping in too quickly. You must understand how everything connects. Then, perhaps you will see the pattern we cannot." Arya nodded, reaching for her digital notepad. For hours, Leora spoke, carefully explaining the structure of her civilization. Cities were not just cities, they were living systems, linked by energy flows that spanned entire planets. Ships were not merely machines. They were part of a vast neural network, sharing knowledge and consciousness across light years. Every attempt to change one element caused ripple effects in ways no alien scientist could predict. "And humans are supposed to just step in and fix it?" Arya asked after a long silence. "This sounds impossible." Leora tilted her head slightly, eyes glowing faintly. "Impossible for those who rely only on certainty. Humans do not need perfection to act. You take risks, follow instincts, and improvise. That is why we came to you. That is why I am here." Arya took a deep breath. She had faced difficult missions before, but never anything like this. The stakes were enormous, and the problem seemed almost designed to defeat the most advanced minds in the galaxy. And yet, there was a strange thrill in the challenge, a feeling that humans were being given a chance to prove themselves in a way no one else could. "I don't even know where to start," she admitted. "You said your systems are collapsing. Can you show me what's failing first?" Leora nodded. She extended a hand, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It floated like a miniature galaxy, stars and planets spinning slowly, connected by threads of glowing light. Streams of data flowed along the threads, but many of them flickered, broke, or disappeared entirely. Arya's eyes widened. This is incredible," she whispered. "And terrifying. What are all these connections?" "They are life, energy, knowledge, and consciousness," Leora explained. "Every thread represents a relationship, a system, a memory. When a thread fails, it affects everything connected to it. Over time, more threads fail, and soon the entire network collapses. We have tried every solution, every calculation, every method known to our species, and each attempt only made things worse." Arya leaned closer, studying the hologram. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the complex patterns. She had never seen anything like this before. For a moment, she felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. One mistake, one misstep, could destroy Leora's civilization entirely. And yet she felt a strange surge of determination. "All right," she said finally. "We have to start somewhere. Show me the weakest points, where the system is failing the fastest." Leora's eyes softened. "You must also understand, some failures are invisible to all species except humans. They are imperfections, anomalies, deviations from patterns. We cannot see them because we depend on logic and symmetry. You notice things differently." Arya frowned. "I notice things differently? That's not exactly precise." "Precisely," Leora said. "You are not precise, you are unpredictable. That is what we need." For the next several hours, Arya worked with Leora, studying the holographic network. She made notes, asked questions, and sometimes just stared in silence, letting her instincts guide her. Slowly, patterns began to emerge, patterns that Leora had never seen because they did not follow the rigid logic of her species. Threads that appeared insignificant turned out to be crucial. Anomalies that looked like errors were actually keys to stabilizing certain connections. "You are beginning to see it," Leora said softly. "Only a human would notice these threads. Only a human could imagine that a system failing in one place might be fixed by acting in another, seemingly unrelated place." Arya felt a thrill. For the first time, she understood why Leora had come to her. Humans were not perfect, not logical, not efficient, but they had creativity, intuition, and courage. They dared to try what others would never attempt, and perhaps, just perhaps, that was enough. As they worked, Arya realized something else. Leora's species had relied too much on calculation, too much on certainty. They had forgotten the value of risk, of trial and error, of improvisation. Humans, by contrast, had survived for millennia not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they were adaptable, daring, and willing to act when others hesitated. "This is going to take more than data," Arya said quietly. We're going to have to try things and fail. A lot. Leora's eyes glimmered faintly. Then you understand why we came to you. Over the next few days, Arya set up a human-style workspace in the outpost. She brought in simulation devices, holographic projectors, and even some old Earth problem-solving tools. Whiteboards, sticky notes, markers. Leora watched with quiet fascination as Arya began sketching, connecting, erasing, and reconnecting threads in ways no alien engineer had ever attempted. You do not follow our logic, Leora said one day, watching Arya move pieces of the holographic network in unexpected patterns. You improvise, you try multiple approaches at once without knowing which will succeed. It is chaotic, but it is working. Arya smiled, wiping sweat from her forehead. Chaotic is human for creative, okay? We're just thinking outside your rules. Leora tilted her head, a gesture that seemed almost like amusement. Yes, thinking outside rules, perhaps that is humanity's greatest strength. For the first time, Arya felt a connection to the alien species. She realized that Leora did not see humans as weak or reckless, as so many others did. She saw them as capable, courageous, and necessary, and that realization filled Arya with a strange pride. Late one evening, as the gray lunar horizon shimmered under the distant sun, Arya paused to rest. She looked at Leora, who stood quietly, observing the network with a calm intensity. You really believe humans can fix this? Arya asked. I do not know if you can fix it perfectly, Leora said softly, but I believe you can try where no one else could, and that is enough. Arya nodded. She felt a strange warmth, a quiet confidence she had never felt before. Humans were not the strongest, nor the smartest, nor the most advanced species, but they had courage, ingenuity, and hope, and perhaps those qualities were what the universe needed most. The days turned into nights, though on Luna the difference was subtle, just the faint shift of shadows across the craters. Arya worked tirelessly, guided by instinct, intuition, and the occasional spark of genius. Leora provided insight, corrections, and context, but always allowed Arya to act on her own. Slowly, small successes began to appear. Threads that had flickered and broken for decades stabilized, just enough to allow minor recovery. Leora's people, communicating across light years, noticed the changes and reacted with cautious hope. You are beginning to change things, Leora said one evening, her eyes brighter than ever. Your species may be the key to what we thought impossible. Arya smiled, exhaustion pulling at her muscles. Or maybe we're just stubborn. Perhaps, Leora said softly, almost smiling, but stubbornness has value, it seems. Arya looked out at the horizon, the endless gray stretching beyond the outpost. She thought of Earth, of her fellow humans, of the billions of people who lived their lives without ever knowing the role their species might play in the galaxy. And she realized that humanity was not meant to be perfect, or predictable, or controlled. Humanity was meant to act, to try, and to endure. And here, on a small outpost on the moon, humanity's first true test in the stars had begun. For the first time, Arya Jensen understood that the universe was not afraid of humans because they were weak. It was afraid because humans refused to give up. And perhaps that refusal, pure, stubborn, chaotic human courage, was the greatest power of all. Arya Jensen stood before the holographic network, her fingers hovering above the controls. Each thread of light represented a part of Leora's civilization, ships, cities, knowledge, life itself. Some threads flickered weakly, others burned with unstable intensity, like stars about to die. The patterns were chaotic, unpredictable, and overwhelming, yet for the first time, Arya felt she understood a small part of it. This is it, she whispered to Leora, who stood quietly beside her. If we're going to try something, it has to start now. We can't wait for the system to collapse completely. Leora's eyes shimmered softly. Do you know what you are about to do? One wrong move and the consequences, they could be catastrophic. Arya nodded, swallowing hard. She knew the risks, but human instincts had kicked in long before logic could take over. I know, but doing nothing guarantees collapse. Doing something gives us a chance, and humans don't give up. For the next several hours, Arya and Leora worked together, selecting threads to stabilize first. Arya's approach was unconventional. She ignored the strict hierarchies and patterns that Leora's species relied upon. Instead, she followed intuition, experimenting with small changes, observing the reactions, and adjusting on the fly. The first attempt failed. A minor stabilization effort caused two connected threads to flicker and collapse. Alarmed, Arya pulled back, her heart racing. I miscalculated, she admitted. The holographic network shimmered with instability. Leora tilted her head, studying the disruption. Mistakes are expected. Humans do not fear them. You adapt, you learn. That is why we trusted you. Arya exhaled, feeling the tension ease slightly. Humans had survived for thousands of years by learning from failure. It was a gift that no perfectly logical civilization could replicate. She reevaluated, adjusted her approach, and tried again, this time targeting a different cluster of threads. Hours passed, and slowly small successes began to emerge. Threads that had flickered for decades stabilized, connecting to their neighbors and spreading a small wave of recovery across the network. Arya's heart lifted. "It's working," she whispered. "It's actually working." Leora's eyes gleamed with faint luminescence. "Yes. You are beginning to see what we could not. You are not bound by perfection, only by persistence." Encouraged, Arya continued. She combined threads in ways no alien engineer had attempted, creating new paths for energy and information to flow. Each attempt was a gamble, sometimes successful, sometimes causing minor collapses. But each failure taught her more about the system than Leora's calculations ever could. As they worked, Arya realized something important. Leora's civilization had relied too heavily on control. Every decision had to be perfect, every action carefully calculated. But life, even at the scale of stars and planets, was not perfect. It was messy, unpredictable, and adaptable, and humans thrived in that chaos. One evening, as the lunar horizon turned silver with the reflection of distant Earthlight, Arya paused. She studied the network, noticing subtle anomalies that others might have ignored. Slight fluctuations in energy flow, minor deviations in thread behavior. To a logical mind, these would appear as errors, but to her, they were opportunities. "These threads," she said, pointing, "they're not failing, they're just stuck. Maybe we can reroute their energy through the smaller, weaker connections. It's messy, but it might work." Leora leaned closer, studying her suggestion. "No species would attempt this. It is reckless." "Reckless is human for creative," Arya said, smiling faintly. "We survive by taking chances that others avoid. Watch." She rerouted the energy along the smaller threads, holding her breath as the system adjusted. The effect was immediate. A cluster of threads that had been flickering weakly for decades suddenly stabilized. The pattern spread outward, restoring part of the network in a wave of soft, glowing light. Leora's eyes widened. You did not follow logic, yet it worked," Arya shrugged. "Logic is fine, but sometimes you need to act first and understand later." Over the following days, Arya's unconventional methods began to show larger results. Entire planetary systems, previously at the brink of collapse, started to stabilize. Leora's species communicated in a way that was difficult for Arya to fully grasp: emotional pulses, shared memories, and intricate data flows. But she felt their cautious hope grow with each success. Yet, even as progress was made, challenges remained. Some threads were resistant, stubbornly refusing to stabilize. Attempts to manipulate them caused cascading failures in other areas. Arya experienced moments of doubt, exhaustion pressing against her resolve. "This is harder than I imagined," she admitted one night, rubbing her eyes. "We fix one thing and something else breaks. How do you live like this?" Leora's gaze was gentle, almost sorrowful. "We did not. We believed we could calculate everything, control everything, prevent failure. We were wrong. Only now, with your help, do we see another path." Arya realized that the alien species had been trapped not by technology, but by mindset. They could not risk improvisation. They could not act without certainty. Humans, by contrast, thrived in uncertainty. Their survival depended on taking chances, adapting quickly, and daring to act even when the odds seemed impossible. The next attempt was Arya's boldest yet. She identified a cluster of threads that connected the energy grids of multiple planetary systems, a critical area that had resisted all previous stabilization efforts. Conventional approaches would have required months of calculations and simulations. Arya, however, trusted her instincts. "Leora," she said, her voice steady despite the tension, "we can't wait for certainty. I'm going to reroute these connections in a way no one has tried. It may fail or it may work. Either way, we have to try." Leora studied her closely. "This is extremely dangerous. Are you certain?" Arya shook her head. No, but certainty is not an option. We act anyway. She activated the sequence, manipulating the threads with precise but unconventional adjustments. The network shivered, pulsing with instability. Arya's heart raced as alarms sounded and flickering lights indicated potential collapses. She felt the pressure building, yet something deeper guided her: intuition, experience, and a quiet, stubborn determination. Then, slowly, the threads began to settle. Energy flowed through the new paths, stabilizing the connections across multiple systems. The holographic network glowed with a soft, harmonious light. For the first time, Arya saw a significant portion of Leora's civilization holding together, no longer on the brink of collapse. Leora's eyes shimmered brighter than ever, her form glowing with relief. "You have done what we could not. You are remarkable." Arya allowed herself a small smile, exhaustion and pride mixing in equal measure. "We did it together." As the days passed, more interventions followed. Arya continued to take risks, improvise solutions, and trust her instincts. Leora provided guidance and context, but it was humanity's unpredictable approach that made the difference. Slowly, the network began to stabilize in ways no alien species had ever achieved. Through it all, Arya noticed a change in herself. The weight of responsibility had been enormous, yet she discovered reserves of courage, creativity, and resilience she had never known. Humans, she realized, were more than survival machines. They were problem solvers, dreamers, and fighters. They could face the impossible without being paralyzed by fear. One evening, as Arya rested in the quiet chamber, she looked at Leora and spoke softly. "I understand now. This is why you came to humans, not because we're perfect, not because we're the strongest, but because we refuse to give up. We act even when the odds are against us." Leora's eyes glimmered with something that felt almost like gratitude. "Yes, that is exactly why. You embody qualities that no other species possesses. You see opportunity where others see only failure. You act where others would hesitate. That may save my people." Arya felt a quiet sense of pride. Humanity had always survived by refusing to accept limits. And now, on the moon, with the weight of an alien civilization on her shoulders, that same spirit was making a difference in the galaxy. The network was far from fully restored, but progress was undeniable. Threads once broken for centuries now held steady. Entire planetary systems had stopped collapsing. Leora's species communicated their cautious optimism, their relief palpable even through the alien signals. Arya knew the challenge was far from over. There would be setbacks, failures, and moments of doubt. But she also knew something else. Humans, with their stubborn courage, improvisation, and determination, could face the impossible and survive. And perhaps that, more than technology or logic, was humanity's greatest strength. The days on Luna had begun to blur for Arya Jensen. The pale sunlight bouncing off gray dust cast long shadows across the outpost, but she barely noticed any more. Time had become a series of moments, each filled with calculations, trials, failures, and small victories. The holographic network, once a chaotic tangle of failing threads, now pulsed with faint but steady energy. Parts of Leora's civilization were beginning to hold, yet instability still lingered in critical areas. Arya leaned over the hologram, eyes scanning every thread, every flicker, every anomaly. Her hands moved almost automatically, adjusting paths, rerouting energy, testing responses. Leora watched silently beside her, her glowing eyes reflecting the light of the network. Though she had appeared calm at first, Arya noticed a tension in the alien's posture, a quiet hope tempered by fear. "This section is collapsing faster than we predicted," Arya muttered, pointing to a cluster of threads near the edge of the hologram. "If we don't act, multiple planetary systems could fail within hours." Leora's soft voice replied. "I see it. The threads are unstable because they are interconnected with systems that have been dormant for decades. No calculation can fully predict the outcome of intervention. Only intuition, trial, and courage may succeed." Arya's lips pressed together. That was humanity's strength, courage in the face of uncertainty. She knew the risk: one wrong adjustment, one misjudgment, could unravel hours of progress, perhaps even accelerate collapse. Yet standing by meant letting entire systems fail. Her heart pounded. "All right," she said, exhaling slowly. "We do it my way. We act." She began her work, rerouting threads with careful improvisation, adjusting energy flows to stabilize weak connections. Each change sent ripples across the network. Some areas flickered violently, alarms blaring as systems threatened to fail. Arya's hands moved quickly, recalculating in real time, trusting instincts honed from years of problem-solving in situations where failure was costly but unavoidable. For a moment, nothing worked. The network shook, threads collapsed, and alarms rang through the chamber. Arya's stomach churned. She wanted to scream to call for backup, but she knew no one could help her. She was humanity's first and only line of defense. Then, slowly, a single thread began to stabilize. Another followed. And then another in a chain reaction she had not anticipated. The network pulsed with energy, a soft hum filling the chamber. Arya's eyes widened. "It's working," she whispered. "Small, but it's holding." Leora stepped closer, her glowing form radiating relief. You risked everything, and it worked. You have done what no other species could even attempt." Arya allowed herself a small smile, though exhaustion tugged at her muscles. "We'll see if it lasts," she said. "We're not done yet." The next hours were a blur of improvisation and adjustment. Arya identified more weak clusters, testing unconventional methods, rerouting energy along seemingly insignificant threads, using minor connections to stabilize major systems. Each success built confidence, but each failure reminded her of the stakes. As the hours passed, Leora began to reveal more about her people's communication networks, pulses of energy, intertwined consciousness, shared memories that humans could barely perceive. Arya listened, learning to read the subtle fluctuations and patterns. She began to intuit where interventions might be most effective, even without fully understanding the complex alien mathematics behind them. "You are learning quickly," Leora said softly, her glowing eyes reflecting admiration. "No other human could have adapted this fast. You think differently than we do. You act when others hesitate. You see patterns where others see chaos." Arya nodded, though she felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. "I have to. If we fail here, entire worlds collapse. Your people, they depend on us." Leora's form shimmered faintly. "And yet you do not act out of fear. You act out of choice, courage, and hope. That is rare. That is why we came to you." Hours became days. Arya worked tirelessly, guided by instinct and intuition, sometimes making mistakes that caused minor collapses, but always learning, always adjusting. Slowly, significant parts of the network began to stabilize. The flickering threads faded into steady, glowing lines. Systems that had been on the brink of collapse for decades now held firm. But even as progress continued, new challenges emerged. A region of the network, larger and more complex than any Arya had encountered, resisted every intervention. It flickered violently, defying all conventional and human approaches. Attempts to stabilize it caused smaller, connected clusters to collapse, creating a cascade of failures. "This section, it's impossible," Arya admitted, her voice tight with frustration. "Every attempt makes it worse. We can't just brute force it." Leora's eyes glimmered with concern. "That is why we did not attempt it. No species could approach it without certainty, and certainty is impossible here. Only a human could risk improvisation without knowing the outcome." Arya took a deep breath. She knew the truth. This would be her boldest move yet. If it failed, it could undo everything. But she also knew that humans did not retreat from challenges. Humans acted, even when success was uncertain, because action itself created opportunity. "All right," she said softly, more to herself than to Leora. "We try it, but carefully." She began analyzing the region in smaller sections, looking for subtle anomalies that might allow minor interventions to ripple outward. Hours passed, and she made small adjustments, testing, observing, retracting when necessary. Slowly, the cluster began to respond. Threads that had seemed unmovable now shimmered with tentative energy. Arya felt a surge of cautious hope. "It's responding," she whispered. "Slowly, but it's responding." Encouraged, she intensified the intervention, rerouting energy along unconventional paths, improvising in ways no algorithm could predict. The network pulsed violently, threads flickering, alarms blaring, but Arya persisted. She trusted instincts honed through years of improvisation, problem-solving under pressure, and surviving situations where failure seemed inevitable. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the cluster stabilized. A soft, harmonious glow spread across the holographic network. Arya's heart pounded with relief and triumph. She had done it. She had faced the impossible and succeeded where every other species had failed. Leora's eyes shone brighter than ever. You have done what we thought impossible. You have saved entire systems. Your species, your courage, it is extraordinary. Arya allowed herself a small, exhausted smile. We're not done yet, she said, but this is a start. For the next days, Arya continued her work, tackling smaller, unstable regions, improvising solutions, and stabilizing the network incrementally. Each success strengthened her confidence. Each failure taught her new lessons. Leora provided guidance and insight, but it was humanity's unpredictability, creativity, and persistence that drove real progress. Through it all, Arya noticed a change in herself. The fear and doubt that had gripped her at the beginning began to fade, replaced by quiet confidence. Humans were not perfect, but they were adaptable, courageous, and determined. They could face the impossible and survive, and in doing so, they could change the fate of an entire civilization. Late one evening, as the soft lunar sunlight reflected off the dust outside the outpost, Arya looked at Leora. I understand now, she said quietly. This is why you came to humans, not because we're perfect, not because we're the strongest, but because we refuse to give up. We act even when the odds are against us. Leora's eyes shimmered with something that felt almost like gratitude. Yes, that is exactly why. You embody qualities that no other species possesses. You see opportunity where others see only failure. You act where others would hesitate. That may save my people. Arya felt a quiet sense of pride. Humanity had always survived by refusing to accept limits. And now, on the moon, with the weight of an alien civilization on her shoulders, that same spirit was making a difference in the galaxy. The network was far from fully restored, but progress was undeniable. Threads once broken for centuries now held steady. Entire planetary systems had stopped collapsing. Leora's species communicated their cautious optimism, their relief palpable even through alien signals. Arya knew the challenge was far from over. There would be setbacks, failures, and moments of doubt. But she also knew something else. Humans, with their stubborn courage, improvisation, and determination, could face the impossible and survive. And perhaps that, more than technology or logic, was humanity's greatest strength.